Hello, hello everyone. Happy Monday. Week of Halloween. It is coming. This is also week of massive sugar in our household as my partner's birthday is on Thursday and then we have Halloween on Friday. And my oldest birthday is on Monday, so we have birthday parties on Saturday and Sunday. So we've got 5 days of new bits of sugar entering the household every day. So next week will be super fun with all the sugar. But today I wanted to jump in and say hi. How are you doing? Hopefully you are doing well. Hopefully you had a good weekend. You were able to sort of rest in a little bit of calm in the midst of lots of fall traditions and prep for Halloween. We did lots of costume making here in this household, along with lots of soccer tournaments and play dates and all the things. And want to talk about sort of this question that we're often asked of, well, what should I be teaching? What should I focus on if I'm trying to help my students build out their data skills? Wait, that's not helpful. Let me actually share screen with you all. Everybody is so patient as I'm constantly jumping in here. So the incredible, fantastic Andee Rubin, amazing researcher, learning scientist who's been in this field of data education, statistics education for decades and has done such key fundamental work with our youngest learners and above, but really grounding in like, what can our youngest learners work with, but then how do we progress that? How do we evolve that so our students are continually building and deepening and broadening their data skills over time in the K-12 or even pre-K through 12 sequence. Pre isn't like prior to kindergarten, not the actual year of pre-K, just the actual year. And she has a great paper that came out a couple years ago, though you might have missed it, and because everything else happened a couple months after this paper came out in 2020, identifying the 5 critical aspects of working with data as context, variability, looking at the aggregate of all the data, really engaging with the visualization, and then getting to, well, what inference will we draw? We can develop a claim from the data, but then what does that mean? Like, how does that help us inform and think about what that could mean in the broader context of different things? And these 5 components, if you can weave these 5 components in some capacity each time your students are working with data, then you are doing a phenomenal job of setting them up for success. Now, what that looks like is going to vary depending on what age of students we're working with or what subject area we're working with. So wanted to give us a quick example of when we're thinking about those 5 components. So context, variability, aggregate, visualization, and inference. And also want to give an incredible shout out to Turner's Graph of the Week. If you haven't checked it out, it is fantastic. There are many different opportunities of places to find real world data and a growing number of places where we can find real world data with examples of what questions we can use to get students to engage with those data. So this is one of a handful. We'll highlight some others, but just wanted to give a shout out to this one, Turner's Graph of the Week. And this week it is thinking about daily caffeine consumption as the prompt and the real world visuals. I'll click into these in a second, but just want to highlight there's discussion openers provided in a PDF. There are a variety of different questions, suggestions that you could ask of like, how much caffeine do you think is in 1 can of soda or in 1 cup of coffee? What food or drink do you think contains the most caffeine? Does caffeine affect your mood or your sleep schedule? Different prompting questions like that we can bring in and filter in. So just want to pause and say, Turner's Graph of the Week is a great resource to use as an opener on Mondays, as a week wrap up on Fridays, if you're going to have a Data Friday or something like that. It can be filtered in various different components. But let's think about this as it relates to Dr. Rubin's suggestion of the 5 critical aspects. So just as a reminder, they were context, variability, aggregate, in visualization, and inferences. So if we jump into one of the visualizations that Turner's Graph of the Week was showcasing up, it actually comes from this caffeine simulator put out by Eli Holder, and where you can run the simulation of how many cups of coffee. This is like a little overwhelming to think about. But you can sort of add in when you have your different cups of coffee and different pieces like that. And then you can see sort of how many milligrams, how long that stays in your system. So I had a cup of coffee around, well, it was around 9 a.m. So maybe I'll sort of put it there this morning. And so now I'm thinking of like, ooh, Nelly, okay, this is a long tail coming off, but this is also why, I might kind of get that slump in a couple hours, sort of right as my kids are coming home from school and I'm juggling the piano lessons and dinner prep and the dog walking and all of those different things. Because I got that big dose of caffeine earlier and then down. Now, this as a side is super fun because you can adjust and you can play around. But let's think back to that, the context. Okay, so where are these data coming from? So we've got based on Starbucks Pike Place roast. So we're thinking about the context of the data. Where did it come from? We've got caffeine's half-life and how many hours. And so you can, it's the simulator, so you can adjust these, but these are contextual components that are helpful to know. Okay, that second piece, variability. Well, we could adjust out when we were seeing the different coffee pieces, we could adjust the half-life of the different pieces, and we could see how those are changing, how we're getting different outputs. Now, this is a simulator, right? And so it's going to have less variability than the real world, but we can toggle and adjust the different parameters going into that simulator and see potential different outputs. And this is based off of running the model, the quantitative model, on a variety of different things, but it's based on assumptions. It's a model, it's a quantitative model, right? So like all of our models, there are limitations, but there are a lot of benefits from it. As in, we can see if Kristen had 3 cups of coffee, one of them being at 4 o'clock in 20 minutes, I'm not going to be able to really go to sleep until about 2 a.m. Yep, that's not good for anybody. But we can also, so that thinking of like, okay, so when would I be able to go to bed? Now I'm shifting into thinking about the aggregate. And I'm looking at sort of all of the data overall, these multiple different cups of coffee coming in. We can jump in to look at the other visualization that Turner's Graph of the Week highlights up, where it's giving us different kinds of beverages and the amount of caffeine that is in each of them as compared to the suggested amount of caffeine, and then looking at sort of what's your caffeine intake. So the simulator is helping us think about over time, and the other visualization is helping us think about what are the different sources that are coming in. And this is pulling from Mayo Clinic, University, and UC Davis, as it's pulling in the resources. This is actually part of a great article, so you can read more about it. So that gives us more sense of context. This also being able to pull in multiple pieces of information over time, different sources, is helping us think more in the aggregate. We're looking at different kinds of visualizations here, and all of those pieces are going to come together to help us think, okay, so what does this mean? And what does this mean based on what's on the page? What claim can I make from the data on the page? But what does it mean more broadly? How does this connect to other things that I know, that I'm learning about, or different things like that? Those inferences, where we're moving into that inference space. And so with these examples, just of the 2 visualizations that were pulled for the Turner's Graph of the Week this week, we can sort of see how these 5 critical aspects of context, variability, aggregate, visualization, and inference can filter in, can factor in to the different types of questions that we ask our students. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. We don't have to go deep in on any one of these at any one time, but we can just hit on them and keep hitting on them and keep hitting on them. Kind of like when we learn how to walk. We try and we fail and we try and we fail and we keep trying and we keep trying. And then when we do it, we're like a little bit teetery. We're up on our tippy toes. And then we get better and better and better at it to the point where it just becomes automatic and we no longer think about it until maybe you get an injury and then you start the process all over again. And you have to sort of retrain those muscles. That muscle memory is important when it comes to our students working with and becoming more comfortable with data. Okay, so 5 critical aspects, try to hit on it on each of your different times. Do want to say, super exciting, the voting has launched for our t-shirt design contest that is coming. So we just posted this 44 minutes ago. The voting is now open where you can vote up what you think, which design you like best for our new t-shirt. It will be coming out at the end of this next month. I'm like, not this month, we're not yet in November yet. At the end of next month, in time for the holidays and end of year and all of those things. So please, please, please cast your vote. Help us decide what our next t-shirt design can be. I'll put a link in this live to the voting so that you can access it and go forward from there. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and stay curious, keep exploring, and good luck with all that candy that's about to come through the